with an update. And yesterday, or was it yesterday? I was analyzing the election day in Israel, which happened on a Mars day, in a Mars month with Mars retrograde in Gemini and Mercury in Scorpio. And it has, the day ended in um, already in Mercury time when Mercury is in Scorpio, so it's still very Mars ruled with Mars retrograde squaring Neptune. And I analyzed two charts, but I did not analyze Benjamin Netanyahu's chart. And funnily enough, um, so far as it seems, he is the person who will attempt to um, the government. So he's the person who will attempt to be prime minister again. And and indeed, Ben Gvir got a lot of votes, and indeed, Yair Lapid got a lot of votes, which were surprising to me. Um, Joyful, surprising, but surprising. So now we're looking at the chart of Benjamin Netanyahu. I have to admit that this is the first time I see this chart with this ascendant. It's a very interesting ascendant here presented in Sagittarius. Not all Israeli astrologers would agree with that, but let's see what it yields. That would make the ruler of his chart Jupiter direct but fallen in Capricorn in the well, when with Jupiter, harsh aspects is not usually a thing, but it harshly aspect Benjamin Netanyahu's nodes. I don't know if he was born before an eclipse or not, like in the midst of an eclipse. I will check that. Um, but the ruler of the ascendant is squaring the nodes. This tells me that this person will be very much affected, at least by eclipse around his nodal axis or nodal return. It tells me that where the soul is heading, Rahu, has a lot to do with the personal path um, of who he is. What it doesn't tell me is the MC, because the midheaven here is in Virgo next to Saturn, um, harshly aspecting Venus, and it's a bit interesting. Benjamin Netanyahu is very known to be um, his relationship with his spouse is something that is very known. People make the claims that he's controlled by the spouse, or the spouse affects his decisions a lot, which I think is not as unusual for any leader, man or woman, to have the spouse being the confidant or the person you consult with. And therefore, when you choose a prime minister, you also choose the spouse of the prime minister to be elected. But here is something that Bibi is known for. And if I look at the harsh aspects his midheaven makes to Venus, it seems that his image collides with something of the feminine. But his Venus is not too far from the ascendant, and he has Chiron on the ascendant. Um, so that is interesting. Trying to think of how it is relevant to him as a political persona. And only point out that because I don't think it's like, well, that's just how I approach to that. Um, his ascendant is 150 degrees and in conjunct to Uranus in Cancer, retrograde Uranus in Cancer. That immediately tells me that this is a person who will go through many ups and downs, and those ups and downs will be fated. So notice how many fated things already are in the chart of this political persona. Okay, the ruler of the ascendant wearing the nodes. That means that whenever there are eclipses, every 9 years or so, there are eclipses on the axis of Libra and Aries, and this person is going to experience tremendous in his life every 9 years or so. as of the eclipses, the first eclipses on the Libra Aries axis. And the second thing is the ruler of the the ascendant in conjuncting an outer planet, which tells me that, and this outer planet being Uranus tells me that there are great changes in the life path of the person that are fated. There are many internal revolutions that this person goes through, and that the aspect itself, the 150, tells me that those internal revolutions are not easy to digest. Okay, they're coming from his 8th house, so it can be even the marriage or the resources within the marriage. And indeed, his relationship with Sarah Netanyahu were a source of a lot of controversy and dispute. There were many times that we heard his name in regarding to something that his wife did. Or rumors that something that his wife did. So he was very much subjected to these sudden things that he had to just assimilate. But it also tells me of some more internal things. 8th house is also joint resources. It can also be joint funds. We do know that Benjamin Netanyahu was, and I think still is, being persecuted for violating the trust of the public money. And he is basically suspected to perform corrupt action, basically to take bribery or misuse the money of the public. And 8th house also tells us something about the resources that are not of the person. Okay, the resources that this person makes not by selling their skills, but by investing, by being a part of ventures, trusts, debt as well, funding and whatnot. So this could also be the money that he will receive from the public while serving a public role like a prime minister. And that money is unstable, and that house is ruled by the moon, which is in his 11th house. So whatever is happening, the ruler of the 8th in the 11th tells me that whatever this person tries to keep hidden, he will not be able to do so. Whatever business and this is indeed the truth, Benjamin Netanyahu was not able to keep the stuff to do with his relationship with Sarah or even her expenses private. Benjamin Netanyahu was not able to keep whatever he is being accused of private. It came out into the public eye, and he was being judged and persecuted by that, albeit receiving also support from the people. And we see that the moon, all in all, is in a good aspect with Uranus. So even though those things are being exposed, he's actually receiving love for basically perhaps being portrayed as a human being or someone that people can relate to. He is not perfect. But even though he's being accused, there are a lot of people who do love him and follow him, even though there is this file against him in court, there are these rumors and so on and so forth. And again, the ruler of his 7th house in the 11th, so also his one-to-one partnerships are very much public, which is actually not a terrible thing for anybody who plays a public role, because one-to-one partnerships is not just spouse and marriages, it's also any partnerships that this person has that are one-to-one. If this is a person who is a public figure, I want to know who is collaborating with. Especially if I'm consider whether I vote for this person, whether this person holds a part of the taxes that citizens pay, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of forced transparency there that I actually do like seeing. Oh, Neptune with the nodes. Again, Neptune with the nodes is another outer planet that is the planet of spiritual experiences, but also loss, fog, illusion, and disillusionment around the nodes. This tells me that there are fated things to do with Neptunian experiences. There is a lot of his life that he has to surrender to the higher, the higher divine order. And this all happens in a very public house. So all in all, if you think about the person, just forget that you forget that you know his face, and you probably do even if you're not Israeli. Everybody heard the name Benjamin Netanyahu. Everybody heard the name Bibi, and many rumors about him. He's like this, he's like that, and he's been a very, very public figure. As stellium in the 11th house, a very public figure. Imagine you see this public figure, and this public figure, their image is an image of someone who somehow can't really keep it together, but they're still very charismatic, quite eloquent, and you can somehow relate to them because they're not perfect. They don't have the perfect marriage. They don't have the perfect investments. Their speeches, while being eloquent, sometimes are a point to ridicule of others. But there's just something about them that appeals to you. Okay? And that can be a part of why Netanyahu is so charismatic, and no matter how people try to bring him down and invest energy in him, he only takes this energy, and almost like martial artist, he's gonna twist it around and put it around and reframe it, and there are gonna be people who are going to love this. So Mars here is in his 9th house in Leo. Israeli state also has Mars in Leo and Pluto in Leo. So he's a Pluto in Leo generation, and he is very much known for being performative, but this is in his 9th house. So in his mindset, this is a showman. He's aware of the power of showing things, not only from the Libra image perspective and beauty perspective, but also kind of like with Mars and Leo, I think about the show must go on. If you are in theater and you fail or you dropped or something happened or whatnot, you just keep on going. You just keep on going. And Mars in Leo in the 9 tells me that this person has this worldview that, the show must go on. If you join that to his Libra house, he's also a master of balancing his image. And Pluto in the 9 tells me that he's very aware. Again, this is an older person. He's in his 70s. So this is a person that has gone through a path with Pluto, so he's very much aware of the power that his worldview holds. He's very much aware of how he's seen, and we see that this Pluto creates here not only a sextile to Neptune, but a sextile and trine to the nodes, giving me yet another outer planet that is very tightly correlating with the path of his fate. Now, Pluto in itself in evolutionary astrology is a part of the evolution of the soul. True. This person came here to explore worldviews of royalty, of kingship, of performative acts, of what happens when, when your show does not go as planned and you must still go on. He came here to explore those kingship mindsets, this worldview, this position of being sort of like godlike, but godlike when they say, well, the king is naked. Guess what? The show still must go on. And Pluto there, sextiling, trining the nodes, is yet another yet another karmic link to his life. So there's a lot in this person's life that is serving something greater than himself. And this does not tell me that this person is benefic or malefic. It just tells me that whatever the construction that is Benjamin Netanyahu is being pulled by a lot of strings, and pulling a lot of strings by merit of certain cosmic order, by merit of his personal path, being so linked to outer planets. What are outer planets? Are generational, the generational timelines, literally zeitgeist. So there are certain zeitgeists that this person, his entire life is zeitgeist related. This is a person who will not disappear from either the public eye or history in any way, shape, and form. Both his north node and his south node are related to those outer planets. So whether it's in the beginning of life or when he assimilates Rahu, he is still a part of a more a larger than himself connection. And because of these things happening and with so much related to the 11th house, his part is visible. Okay, it's not the hidden role, but rather a visible role of someone that we see playing a role throughout history that is just fated. We like him, we cannot like him, we can push him aside, they come from the other side, but this is not just his personal attributions, very much thanks to something greater than himself. So the story of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israel state has not ended yet. He still has a role to play here. And that is very interesting. Please forgive me. I seem to have, I normally try not to confuse Rahu and Ketu, but this is important. So Rahu, symbolism, symbol. Strange as it is, I am neurodivergent. Okay, so this is Rahu. I go back to the map. Okay, that's why. That's why. So this was hidden from my eye when I did my previous video. Because I was in Benjamin Netanyahu, sun in Libra. The Libra will be with Ketu in Libra, and so we'll hear less and less of Benjamin Netanyahu. But no, his Rahu, the head of the dragon, is in Aries, where the eclipses are going to be. So this tells me that this person's role, for better or for worse, has not ended yet. And his Mars is sextiling the sun, the very public sun, that together with the moon oppositions Rahu. So it's an interesting position all in all, because his sun and moon, his personal mother father, sort of like yin yang, is in the position where it is very, very public now, but his Rahu is actually in a position of the 5th house. But then there is a tension between the 5th and the 11th. And by the way, this is a person who is known for his expenses. Okay, Jupiter increases, expenses, 2nd house. The ruler in the 10th house next to it, midheaven, is known for his expenses. So sometimes also luxurious expenses for something that he's enjoying, especially trips abroad. This is the 5th house, the ruler of the 5th in the 9th. This person loves to go abroad, and he loves to spend money luxuriously there, or at least this is what we think of him. Although with Mars, with Mars in Leo, he likes that luxury. He likes to be treated as a king. Um, and also Lilith, his raw side, okay, desirous side, is very much basic instinct, okay, very indulgent, okay, with Lilith there in Aries. And he's actually the older he grows, as of his 40s, he's exploring this more and more. Now, I did not expect him to be in the role like so much that he will be prime minister again. This is very interesting. And what's interesting enough that even if he will be, let's say Ben-Gvir will take the reign, um, it's actually Benjamin Netanyahu that can mitigate him, because the eclipses, right now we have Rahu in Taurus. And Rahu in Taurus, it yielded the Sun and Venus and Jupiter in Taurus Ben-Gvir to rise to fame, to rise to be a part of the public discourse, to rise to be a part of the government. Okay, this was a person that did things that many would consider terror, outright. So, if you want to read about him, Itamar Ben-Gvir, you can, Google the name. You will run into things that probably will shock you. But then this is with Uranus in Taurus, is coming to the forefront, and we need to deal with him in the government. Although this is a person who is very not, he's not Saturnian in any way. He's not like Yair Lapid. He's not like Benjamin Netanyahu. At least is known for being Saturnian. He's known for being in this position, top of the hierarchy. This is not Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir is known to be outcast, the outsider, and that's for another video which I actually did, and you can watch this my previous video about the elections, where I did not include Netanyahu's chart. And honestly, I did not think that there would be. I believe that he will be a part of the government. I did not believe that he will be in the role where now it is up to him to make another government. It doesn't mean that he will be successful. The stars are against it. Actually, the stars tell me that there is more to come, more to unfold. But because Rahu is moving from Taurus, 2023, 2024 is moving from Taurus to Aries. And so the eclipses again are going to be in a place that is very important for Netanyahu. And guess what? It will be in a way that makes him take perhaps even a bigger role in the history of Israel. It's something that they did not expect to see. Even though he has a stellium in Libra, his North Node is actually in Aries, and so I do not expect to hear less of him, nor do I expect him to take a hidden role. What is important to note, both the Taurus Scorpio eclipses threaten Netanyahu with being in jail, and Scorpio is in the 12th house. But this is the kind of person, with the ruler of the 12th in the 9th, this is the kind of person that if he would go to jail, and yes, he did write a book, he has a new book, a new autobiography, so this threat of jail to him actually made him an author of a book. So this is exactly the kind of a person that if he would go to jail, he would write a book and we'll know about him this way. And the more risk will be actually around 2024, 2023 to 2025, where the eclipses, the set of eclipses might yield imprisonment. I'm not saying for sure, but definitely, when you have all this political upheaval and even within the right wing, okay, and he's dealing with another figure of someone who doesn't always go by the rules, and so this person might eventually be at the point, not necessarily, but he might eventually be at the point where he can be judged and sentenced to jail. If that happens, he is very likely to become an author, to become a writer, to become a speaker. Like he will not stop being public if he is in jail, and because the ruler of the 12th is also the ruler of the 5th, he will not suffer that much either. Look how well aspected Mars is. It's in a fixed fire sign in Leo. It's it's not that it's not happy. It's just, it's not the best operating in Leo, but not because it's not happy. It's just that it's too much of heat, too much heat, okay? And not the kind of heat, it's the heat of the sun. It's not the heat, um, yeah, it's just too much heat. Um, but Mars is very finely aspected. And so this is not the person that you can threaten them with jail. Because even if they will be isolated or will be exiled, they will only rise to fame. They will only rise and be more known. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just saying that I look at this. If the ruler of the 12th is also the ruler of the 5th, and it is well aspected in the 9th, this tells me that the worldview of the person cannot be threatened by being jailed. It also tells me that there's a lot that this person is doing for the sake of fun, that what he does for fun might be self-undoing. But that again brings me back to the point where this is a person that is visible, and all those things only make him more relatable to people. It's a king they can relate to. It's a king that is not perfect. And you can see how problematic is the notion of royalty and kingship and Bibi Hamelech, sozusagen, like this is the king, when we are dealing with the context of Israel at least trying to be a democratic state. But then there is this person who, Israel's 10th house, as we seen yesterday, is in Leo, and this is a person who has Pluto there and has Mars there, and this is his 9th house. So his worldview is very much in alignment with what Israel is known for. And this is not democracy. Okay, and this is not because he is not yes or not democratic. It is more because of the personality. The sun is ruling the 9th house, and this is kingship, kingdom. It's a person who is like a guru to people, of whichever context he will be. Now he's in political context because Israel has Leo in the 10th house, and 10th house is also the regime. He's not to blame that Israel's Leo is the 10th house. He could have been an actor, he could have been a publicist, he could have been many, many things. He could have been a journalist, he could have been talented in many, many things. In this country, he became prime minister. And now he's not leaving the history of the political sphere, and it is actually heading towards, it's not heading towards, but he is heading towards a change in what he does for fun, a change in the risk-taking, a change in the 5th, a change in romance even. The eclipses on Rahu, and it's true, Rahu is where Aries is. So this is very interesting. It's not that he doesn't have things to deal with, but all in all, it's optimistic. It is true that Keto is going to be also, his Keto is going to be very much involved with the eclipses on the Libra Aries axis. Is it not problematic? Is it not dangerous? Yes, it is. Absolutely. When anybody who has already had eclipses on their Keto knows that perhaps there was a window of opportunity for them to cross over. It does not necessitate that this will be the case. It does mean that he's stellium, does mean that the way he's viewed in the public eye, his whole public role will go through tremendous changes. Some things he will need to let go of, something of the way he's of the image of the public eye, but of the 11th, because the 11th is in Libra and not because of the midheaven, something that he will have to let go of. But then his fifth house is accentuated, and it is related to the ninth, and it is still related to the 11th. So he will be known for other things. There are certain losses that are divinely guided for this person. It can be also financial losses, investment losses, but not that he will become poor or anything like that. It's just a part of life. This is also what can happen when the ruler of your eighth house is, under eclipse. Um, and so the eclipses are now on this 12th, 6th, and indeed he had health issues that he dealt with and probably still is dealing. But that is expected to come to a resolution by 2024, where he will have to face more matters of the risks that he takes. And this can be a result. For example, if a person is going through a medical condition, then what they do for fun, they might not be able to run as fast anymore. And there are many things, the heart rate can be affected, what you do for fun. But all in all, the letting go that he will experience as of 2023, 2024 will actually be difficult but pleasurable to him. It's like a burden lift off him, because this Keto thing in the 11 tells me that there are burdens, that there is like karma from the past, that there is something that he's been carrying out, and all his public life has been sometimes more of a drag and a drain. It's a comfort zone that is uncomfy. So a lot of letting go of that will actually be a relief. Although when it happens with eclipses, these are tremendous changes to the life path of a person. And also certain types of fun that he has been pursuing will no longer be able to be, and new types of risks and fun and attention to children and new and certain basically the new types of such ventures will be more of what he does. Does it mean that he will no longer be prime minister? I don't know. It can. It doesn't have to be. But we'll definitely hear about him. And because because of Rahu approaching Aries, I don't expect him to lose his job necessarily. If it was only the Libra stellium, I would say, okay, this is when he needs to go and do something else, like find the next source of meaning in his life, because this is not where he's heading. But because we have the opposition, the Rahu in Aries, then at least until 2026, I do expect him to still be around. I do expect him to have tremendous changes to the role that he plays, whether it's in the government or the political system. Maybe he will be president even, because it's more representative, but he's too active to do that. Even if he will be president, he will be someone that we will hear of, that will still be very active in his role. This is a person who does things. And not only does things, it is also a person that it doesn't do things in a hidden way. What he tries to do hidden, you will see public, but also he doesn't do things in a hidden way. He will frame and reframe whatever he is doing so that everybody will know, and then will join a couple of things that maybe he didn't do, or join a couple of things and reframe them as a win. And that is something that can happen. Anything more to say about this chart? Well, the Saturn Venus heart square we talked about, with the feminine, or in this case Venus the spouse. Whatever difficulties are there, they are very public, and it's something that he's known for. Actually, his spouse is known to be strict on her employees, so that is another thing, that she's been accused of. So a strict spouse, but also very dominant, very effective, very close to his life path. It's, the Venusian figures in his life do affect him tremendously, and affect his life path. And it is trine in Pluto, so she actually empowers him. She actually gives him a sort of advice that helps in bringing him into power, which we know. Um, and again, look at the lot of fortune, in the 12th house. This tells me that even if people will put him in an isolation, and isolation is not only jail. Okay, in recent year and a half, there was a campaign that literally everybody on Facebook were saying, "Go, like go away," meaning to Bibi. This is tremendous, very public isolation that he had to face. But it only made him stronger. It only made people, the people who did like him, it only made them support him more. Again, think about martial arts and energy. If you put energy, how do you find an opponent? You use his energy, and basically take their energy away and then put them back to the earth. You have this movement where you take your hands down to the earth. So when you're finished, you move the excess energy back to the earth. Otherwise, you will be violent. This is how you do it. Okay, you don't invest energy attack. You attack, but um, you don't want them to be in control of the energy that you invest in them. And what happens when you do a campaign and you tell somebody go away, when you tell somebody, oh, he's like this, he's like that, you give them a lot of energy. And this is a person who is a master in taking this energy and rediverting it to something constructive, reframing it, rediverting it. So this isolation that he's known for, Saturn in the next to the midheaven, a person is known for being isolated. A person self-image goes through certain patterns of isolation. Okay? So this isolation only makes him stronger, and he only takes this energy, and then he will redirect it, and now the people who loved him will love him even more, because they will feel needed. They will feel that they serve a role. They will feel that they save him. Okay, with Neptune here, Neptune in the 11th house can also mean that his followers and him have a savior victim complex. And so when he's been isolated, then his followers, see him as a victim, and then they come to rescue. They will go, and there were 70% of voting in these elections. A lot of people voted. Why? Because they were devoted to this persona. They wanted to save the party. They wanted to save the beloved leader. Okay, but that is something that is fated. This is something that just happens to him, and it is like a gift. So when he's isolated, when he's going through 12th house stuff, eventually it is a gift. Eventually, this is a lot of fortune. Okay, and it's true, a lot of fortune does not necessarily tells you that something will be happy for you, but it does tell me that if there are gifts for him, they are at the 12th house. There are when he's been isolated. They also are when he retreats. There also are when he is exiled. And he has been exiled from the government. He has been threatened with jail. He basically has been empowered in every possible way while people were trying to take him down. That is the sky. You can like Bibi, you can dislike Bibi, but this is the chart. This is the structure of the entity that I'm revealing through this chart. It is a very powerful chart, not because he is a very powerful persona. I mean, he is, but also others. But because how involved are the generational, the zeitgeist planets, the downloaded timelines in the path of the fate of the native, about the ascendant and the nodes. I'm not even talking personal planets. I mean, of course, the personal planets. I mean, of course, the moon being affected by Neptune here is fated, of course. However, look at the nodes. Look at Rahu. Look at even Ketu. Look at the ruler of the ascendant. Look at the ascendant itself. This is so much fated path for a person. Now, he was born in 21 October 1949, and let's see, eclipse. I know we can see it here. I'm just gonna look at eclipses. Oh. And if you haven't noticed, then I am not 20. Well, it shows me the entire eclipses, I think, or not. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay, that would be the lunar. And let's go here. This is a wonderful way to look at the eclipses and see if a person was born under eclipses. So he was born in 21 October 1949, I believe. That is quite important. I think he was 1949. Let's look at this chart again. 1949, yes. So now I want to see eclipses again. And this is how you check if a person was born under eclipse. So we have lunar. And AstroSeek is great for that. 20s, 50s, 40s. 249. Let's go all the way to 49. October 7, eclipses on Aries, right where his Rahu is. And he was in October 21. Let's look at the solar, because this is the shade of an eclipse, but it's not exactly. Let's look at the solar. Oh, yes, that's... Wait, was I doing it right? Let's check myself. Was I doing it right? Yes, I was. And now, yes, the solar eclipses of 1949. And oh my God, he was born on an eclipse. Wow. 28 Libra, it's a partial eclipse, partial solar eclipse, but still, a person that is born, I think also Trump was born under an eclipse, but this is the day of an eclipse. The day of an eclipse. And yeah, you can literally, this is BB's chart, right? It's the same date. Oh my God. It's the same date. So this person was literally born into a series of fated events. A person born even under the shade of an eclipse may feel that their life is a series of fated events that they don't always control. They might even have some premonitions. He's not having anything in the 29th degree, so he's perhaps less likely to have premonitions, but he could. And this tells me that this person is, you can like him, you can dislike him, but this is a person who is like an agent that came to serve a role that is a lot less personal. It doesn't mean that this person is not selfish or that is not egoistic. It just means that this person is having a life path that the role of fate is very, 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 very large. Okay, it doesn't mean that they don't have personal choice, and yet the role of fate, this is a person that can be... I was born in the shade of eclipse, not on an eclipse, but 11 days before. And I can identify with at least some of the feeling where you think you're going For example, for those of you, I said I'm a Me Too veteran in the past, and it was in academia. And it felt like I was doing something with my thesis. I was in this department, but my thesis was in another topic. And then something happened in my life. And then something happened with one of the people that I'm a TA to. And I feel that things are being dragged in a certain direction. And I try to maneuver, and I try to go, and I try to this, and I try to that. And boom, I was the one to expose, a million things. I didn't plan to, I didn't, what the heck, okay? That is the kind of feeling that a person can have pretty much consistently in their lives when they're born under an eclipse. Think about Donald Trump, who's only also born under an eclipse, and the many things that he knew, that he said, and he also has, I don't remember what he has on the 29th, and the many things that he knew. Like, he knew he was going to be the president of the United States way before he was, and it doesn't mean that he was a good president or a bad president. It was just something that was going to happen. And it was not necessarily because it was an ambition. It was just something that he knew that was going to happen. So, but it doesn't, that is the addition of the 29th degree, but the eclipses tell us that there is very little choice about that. There's very little choice about what's going to happen. And so even when you take a look at the figure, and I can't ignore the joint forces of Trump and Bibi. What I refer to in my Twitter is Bibi Trump, because these two both are playing a certain role that is fated. It's like they are players in something that I'm sure that if we had an honest interview with either one of them, they would have told you, that there are things that they know, but no, they don't. It's like they don't. Nobody taught them; they just knew. So I haven't checked it. I haven't checked this for Lapid, and I haven't checked this for Ben-Gvir, and it's very likely that these people, at least some of them, are also born under eclipse. Also, if you would ask me if I would do an analysis of the elections, or if I would do an analysis of this chart, I would like, what? I don't know. But this happens, okay, and it's a part of those things that just happen. So if you ask me from a predictive point of view, yes, Benjamin Netanyahu is going to remain a part of the political discourse and the international arena. Yes, his role is not finished at all. Is there a risk that he will be in jail? Maybe, even if it's not something that he should fear, or that he should his lot of fortune is there. So the pinnacles of his life, some of the pinnacles of his life, and some of the downfalls are related to these fortunate events that can be uplifting and can also not. It's also ailment, okay? But it's not a person who should fear isolation. I don't think that he fears, or even if he fears, because Pluto in the ninth can give us a sense of fear about, the worldview that is fear or paranoia. But it's not something that he should be worried about. It's actually something that is going to help him. But then it doesn't even mean that it will happen. Yes, this person is experiencing things with being isolated. His lot of fortunes is in the 12th house. I haven't done ZR, but because I'm not even sure it's the right standard. It is. So ZR is from the lot of fortune, will tell me what are the main peaks of his life. Arabic lots. Yeah, Arabic lots, okay. Oh, but because I know. Okay, it doesn't matter. No, I'm not gonna touch on that. Not gonna touch on that. But definitely tells me that experiences of the 12th house are again fated for him. Lot of fortune is fated. Okay, lot of spirit is more how you respond to things, what you can do, of things which I don't think is relevant to touch on this one, because that would be more like a personal reading. Like if you came to me for ZR from his a lot of spirit, but even then, I don't think I would need to give him like a lot of fortune stuff, because he would probably know a lot or sense a lot. Um, Even though it's in the 12th house, but it does tell me that experiences of being isolated is not something that will become strange to him, and it's just something that he learns to deal with, even though it's not fun. And but there is a release from certain karmic roles that he experienced in being a public figure, that letting go might open the door for new ways of just enjoying life. You know, the fifth. Um, and the fifth in Aries tells me that this person does like competition, but more with himself. It tells me that this person likes innovation. Mars is the malefic out of sect for him, so it tells me that this house is a bit problematic for him. Whatever he will do, he will have to mitigate that, learn how to work with Mars or appease Mars, and kind of make sure that Mars, that as much as he can, but because Mars is so related to the nodes, then I don't expect. It's the ruler of the North Node, so there is only so much that he can mitigate when he's born under an eclipse, because some of the things are just they will just happen. Um, so this is, if I think, what is the value of doing such a reading for the people who listen to it? Radical acceptance, also of our own lives. It is funny because both Trump, born under eclipses, they are both states, were both heads of states in a democratic regime. And I think a lot of what we've seen with democracy in the past century has been the democratic regime has only partially fulfilled the promise, and the ways in which you do not absolve yourself of kingship, even when you do democracy. There is a cultural aspect that to allow people to shine in their own sun on a collective level, as well as a radical acceptance that there are just people who are going to play the roles of kings, no matter how anarchistic or democracy the environment or the context is. And you can say, well, they're both right wing, blah, 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 blah. Right liberal economy. That's a point. Okay? So, you're going to still have rock stars even when the music industry is independent. You're going to still have gurus even when you're going outside the academia. And as Pluto is approaching Aquarius, the people in power are going to change, but the fact that there will be a strive or craving some sort of anarchism or alternative societies, alternatives, perhaps even alternative secret communities. Some secrets are beautiful and blessed. Okay? Some secrets are horrid and awful. And there's just away from people still playing the roles of a guru, a king, a rock star, a model of however blessed and or crooked inspiration. when Trump was elected, when he was first elected to be president of the United States, what he said was, and very honestly, there is always a connection between politics and business, politics and wealth. You cannot do. Here I am, a wealthy business person, that at least when I'm president, you know that you know where the money's coming from, which is a big lie because we don't. But you know that I'm a rich person that has a business interest and I'm playing for, president role. You know that. It's not hidden anymore. It's not outside. And there is a lot of truth to that. Trump or not Trump, there is always funding to campaigns. There's always funding to candidates, and as big the country is, Israel is a small country, but still, you need to have at least $10 to $1,200, $10 to $1,200,000 to even start a campaign. So whether you do crowdfunding, which some people attempted, or whatnot, you are related to wealth. Wealth and politics are not separate, because the whole issue of politics, one of the definitions of politics, the allocation of resources in a limited resource system. Okay, when we have only such and such of something, what do we allocate these resources to? Security, health, well-being, how do we see those things, and so on and so forth. So a part of the big cards of democracy is to agree to allocate resources to implement the implementation of the opposite opinion to yours, as well as to yours. That's a part of, that's the only way democracy, in a way that is more fair. That's the epitome of required, not only in the democratic situation, in any sort of resources allocation, any sort of situation that is political. And so we're asked to sort of radically accept that. Whatever your regime system, whatever your mode of elections, corruptions for the system, but also that you cannot avoid certain people rising into power, and that exposes things that bring the next zeitgeist. And so the paradox of free will is always interrelated with fate. Okay, what you do, what you will to do, is very much related. To move your hand, you have free will. You need to direct the motion. So you need to have the will to direct the motion, to have choice to direct the motion, choice between possibilities, multiple possibilities. But it leads to you. And you need to have a certain sort of determinism, because if you say, I want to move right, and you start moving your hand, it has to move right. So there's a lot of, biological, energetic, whatnot, systems that are very deterministic, that allow you to trust that when you want to hand to the right, it will move to the right. And in those patients where those processes are infringed, we do see a lot, we do see when we do neuroscience and so on and so forth, where a person does not necessarily control the movement and so on and so forth. We need the fatedness and the determinism to exert free will. And to exert free will, it's not only that free will can emerge from a certain deterministic state, because it is an emergence of desire to be free, but also you also need a deterministic system within which you operate and exert your will. I hope I was clear enough. If not, ask me questions in the comments below. I'm Tali Share on Twitter, and I'm still on Twitter. And I found out that if you report hate speech For me, it was before I reported before Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and today I got a notice that the person was indeed warned, and they were asked to remove their hate speech. So I know there's a big issue with homophobia on Twitter. There's a big issue with homophobia in general, anti-Semitism, whatnot, marginalized society, all that havoc. Report, not just on Twitter, but do report. Let's see if it gets noticed. There is Elon Musk, but then there are employees and there are people that work there, and let's see what happens. And of course, express our opinions. That's the free will that we can exert, is saying yes to what we do want and setting boundaries as our path allows. So I'm Talia Youngblood on Instagram, Shirley Talia Youngblood on Facebook, where I usually write in Hebrew, but that might change if there is, I don't know. Open to hear about new platforms, social media platforms, decentralized platforms, whatnot. If you wonder whether I am available for reading, meanwhile, the answer is not only that I am, but because I am a one-person show for the while, and you can see it in the apparent lack of branding and design that you see right now, it does bring in a price that is still accessible. Albeit my experience. And so that might be an opportunity for people that, it's a win-win when I don't have to hire a billion people to do my branding just yet, and get a very accessible astrological personal reading for you in a fair price. So you can contact me on Instagram or Twitter only if you contact me. Meanwhile, I was not important enough for anybody to try to fake my identity. But I know that these things are happening, and I see that sometimes my votes are rising, sometimes more. So I will not contact you to give you a reading. If I do any special, research offers, donation-based readings that I sometimes do it on my social media so that you can contact me. I do not contact you for a reading. That's just not gonna happen. And even if I did, let's say if I met you in a Hebrew, in a Hebrew speaking group on Facebook, and there was something interesting about your chart that I would say, okay, I can give you a reading because it was the conversation. I'm, unless you ask something extra from me, I'm highly unlikely to charge you. Because if it's something for my research, I'm highly unlikely to charge you unless you ask for something extra for me. That is the only time where I was offering things, but I will never offer you something that you have to pay for. I will never contact you and offer you a paid reading, ever. It's just not ethical to do it, and know that nobody does that. No astrologer does that. No one who is in the industry does that. I saw also Sphere and Sundry had copycats, and no, like there will never anybody, none of us will contact you. If anybody contacts you and asks you for money, don't give them any details and don't give them any money. This is fake. Nobody, nobody, nobody does that. So that's really important. Like even in the time where we would initiate, I think about the times before the fakes that I would initiate, I would usually already give a part of the reading to a person. I will already give them something that they know is true for a fact, that was channeling, they know is true for a fact, and then offer them to work with me. I would never say, beloved, I'm feeling touched by your energy. No, I would give concrete things. This is something that happened to you. This is, and you want to know more, that. But I don't do it now because A, I don't bother to, and B, there are so many fakes that it's just not ethical to do it anymore because it's just so, this is really important. Don't get your well hard-earned money taken from you by people who are fakes. In general, initiate your own purchases. This also you decide to buy. You decide because you want, because you've seen this reader or this whomever, and you have been exposed to them, and you from your will, desire to work with them. Okay, and that is important. End of story, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.